Welcome to Loving God and Loving Life. In Acts chapter 21, the theme is Paul's journey to Jerusalem, where he is ultimately arrested. I want to show you an interesting scripture. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 20 says this, "Do not despise prophecies." Well, what an interesting verse. Don't despise prophecies. Well, why would anybody ever despise prophecies? Because, friends, again and again, and I've experienced this personally down through the years, and in Scripture you see it, that bottom line of hearing from God, prophesying this, hearing God's voice and speaking it out, it can really be confusing. And this chapter just shows it so perfectly. That in place after place, Paul is getting these, quote, words from God. People are speaking to him words from God. But again and again, the messages are making it sound like, Paul, you shouldn't be going to Jerusalem. Paul's on his way to Jerusalem at God's will. Paul feels and knows that God is sending him, but he's getting all of these messages from people who are hearing from God. And then we see this prophet, Agabus even is probably the key one here, giving him Paul this message about that he's going to be bound when he gets to Jerusalem. Well, here's the bottom line. The bottom line of hearing from God is always interpretation. Agabus was correct. Paul was bound, but all of the people, their interpretation was to try to convince Paul, don't go. Their interpretation was, since hardship is in front of you, the message is obviously, Paul, don't go. God is telling us this, so you don't go. Paul realized that's not the case. Yes, God is warning me. God is giving me this message, but it's to prepare myself. Just like Jesus knew these. You read the last chapters. He knew he was marching towards his death on his way to Jerusalem. He knew it. And he wasn't going to be turned around, and Paul wasn't going to be turned around. So what's the point? Yes, let's seek to hear from God. Let's seek even the prophetic, but don't ever forget the big bottom line is always seeking God's interpretation. God, what do you want? Not just a message, but what do you want me to do? That's the big bottom line. And again, prophecies can lead you in so many different directions. You can hear something and not really know exactly what it means. So let's get the bottom line. God, what do you want me to do? Where do you want me to go? What do you want me to do? And here's what we know he wants us to do. He wants us to share the love of God, the good news of Jesus Christ with the world. He wants us to be renewed and transformed by Christ himself, then to share that with the world. And whatever hardship we have to face, we're ready to face it. God, today, send us one person today to share your love with. Friends, don't ever forget that loving God, it's the only way to live a life that you love.